Once upon a time, the Smurfs gathered in Smurf Village to plan a surprise party for Smurfette's birthday. You see, while every Smurf is special, Smurfette is particularly unique, since she's the only girl in the village. Her birthday was going to be Smurftastic, with singing, dancing, Smurfberry cake, and presents that didn't blow up, since none were from Jokey Smurf. But little did the Smurfs know that they were about to get a surprise from the evil wizard Gargamel. As they prepared for the festivities, the Smurfs were startled by the sound of Smurfette screaming in the enchanted forest. They ran quickly to see what had happened, but arrived too late. Smurfette had been smurfnapped by a mysterious stranger. As the stranger dragged Smurfette into the enchanted forest, a spell suddenly transformed the normally happy creatures of the forest into very mean ones. The Smurfs panicked and in the confusion accidentally bumped Papa Smurf, sending his magic Smurfportation crystals flying into the air and right into their mouths. Once swallowed by the Smurfs, the magic in the crystals activated and opened a portal that Papa Smurf knew would help them find Smurfette. The Smurfs jumped in, ready for any danger that might come their way. Let's continue our story. When the Smurfs arrived in the spooky woods, they found Smurfette held prisoner. The Smurfnapper, who called herself Vexy, looked like a Smurf, but was pale in color rather than blue. Gutsy Smurf demanded that Vexy release Smurfette, but she refused, saying that she was taking her sister back to their papa. Vexy then carried Smurfette off even deeper into the forest. But before the Smurfs could stop her, a cursed frog leaped out and attacked them.
Let's Smurf.
Don't worry, I got this. Don't worry, I got this. It's all part of my plan. Whoa, whoa, whoa! It's all part of my plan. See? Perfect form, right?
While the Smurfs defeated the cursed frog, Vexy had taken Smurfette deeper into the spooky woods, where the Smurfs knew Gargamel often lurked. Suddenly, a second portal burst open, and they smurfed into what was surely going to be even more danger. The Smurfs jumped out of the portal and into the spooky woods. Almost immediately, they became lost, and Grouchy Smurf made sure they all heard about it. But before he could finish complaining, the Smurfs heard a sinister yet unmistakably familiar snicker echo throughout the woods. Unafraid, the determined Smurfs pressed on in their search for their beloved Smurfette. Papa suspected that she'd been taken to Gargamel's hovel. As Papa Smurf suspected, Vexy had taken Smurfette to Gargamel's hovel. As the Smurfs made their way inside, they found Smurfette trapped, while Vexy mixed a strange potion. The Smurfs pleaded with Vexy to release Smurfette, but she refused, telling them again that Smurfette was her sister and belonged to their true papa, Gargamel. But the Smurfs are Smurfette's real family, and they remain determined to free her. Vexy finished mixing her potion and set the bottle on the ground. The potion opened another portal, which revealed their old nemesis, Azrael. Vexy grabbed Smurfette and leaped into the portal, but when the Smurfs tried to follow, Azrael stood menacingly in their path. The Smurfs knew that they would have to deal with a snarling Azrael before they could continue.
Let's Smurf!
Just need a bit more practice. Don't worry, I got this.
It wasn't easy, but the Smurfs managed to overcome Azrael. Papa Smurf had peeked into Vexy's portal just before it closed and saw a familiar place, New York City. Luckily, the Smurf portation crystals allowed them to open another portal to the same place. Even though they realized New York might not be completely safe, the Smurfs knew it was also home to some very good friends. The portal dropped the Smurfs off at the home of Grace and Patrick Winslow, their human family. Excited to see them again, the Smurfs told the Winslows about Smurfette's capture and asked if they knew of Gargamel's current whereabouts. Just as worried for their friend Smurfette, the Winslows said that Gargamel was now a world-famous magician. Tonight was his last show in New York before leaving for Paris, France. With no time to waste, Patrick gave Papa the location of the theater in Paris where Gargamel's show took place. The grateful Smurfs then said their goodbyes to the Winslows and smurfed a new portal, heading for their next stop in New York. As soon as the portal opened, the Smurfs spotted Smurfette, now held captive by Gargamel, Vexy, and another Smurf-like boy creature who shared her same pale color. It was Hackus, Vexy's brother, who, like his sister, had been created by Gargamel. Gargamel was shocked to see his enemies, the Smurfs, appear. But his initial surprise was short-lived. He ordered Vexy and Hackus, his naughties, to attack. With tremendous strength, Hackus knocked the Smurfs back like they were Smurf bowling pins. The naughties forced the Smurfs to retreat into a nearby candy store, where the naughties continued their pursuit while Gargamel snuck off to conjure another evil spell. While it may have been just the two of them against the Smurfs, the odds somehow seem stacked against our heroes.
Let's Smurf!
Whoa! I'm pretty unforgettable. Don't worry, I got this. That was easier than I thought.
Hey!
Can't wait till everyone is safe.
Victory over the naughties was sweet, but brief. Gargamel returned with Smurfette, now even angrier because his naughties had failed to stop the Smurfs. Vexy and Hackus retreated behind their master as he waved his wand in the air and declared that his evil plot had only just begun to unfold. At that moment, Papa Smurf smurfed a new portal so the Smurfs could escape with Smurfette. But Gargamel's magic covered it with a thick sheet of ice. The Smurfs slid on the slippery surface right into the frosty portal. The frosty portal deposited them alone on an icy mountain. Oh, the Smurfs had never been this cold in their entire lives. To make matters worse, it seemed that the Smurf-portation crystals had stopped working again. With no way to smurf a portal, the trapped Smurfs decided to explore the mountain, hoping to find shelter and somehow restore the power of the magic crystals along the way. Their desperate journey through the snow and ice led the Smurfs to the top of the mountain. Just when all seemed lost, the magic in the crystals suddenly returned, and the Smurfs prepared to smurf a portal to find Smurfette. But before they could leave, Brainy Smurf shakily observed that they were not completely alone. As the Smurfs turned to see what was frightening him, they were relieved to be greeted only by a cute polar bear cub. Oh. But Papa Smurf remained wary of Gargamel, and his fears were realized when he saw another spell headed directly for their new polar bear friend. Unknown to the Smurfs, this spell was also part of Gargamel's evil plan to prevent them from rescuing Smurfette.
That was easier than I thought. I'm the best for the job. For the job.
Now in Paris, Gargamel schemed to permanently rid himself of the pesky Smurfs. Despite many defeats in the past, he remained confident that this time he would prevent them from taking Smurfette. But just in case, Gargamel also carefully considered a backup plan.
If ice won't cool them down,
Gargamel mused aloud. But before he could finish, he was interrupted by an eager-to-please Hackus who blurted out, "Then fire warm them up?" At first, Gargamel frowned at the slow-witted Hackus, but then recognized the unintended truth in what he said. If ice won't stop those infuriating Smurfs, then fire will. Gargamel uttered, "Our little Smurfs are so cold, they turn blue. It's time to turn up the heat." With a flick of his wand, Gargamel created a powerful energy that rushed out of his fireplace and into the streets of Paris, which lit up blue like a Smurfy Christmas tree. Meanwhile, back on Ice Mountain, the Smurfs managed to stop the poor polar bear cub who had been cursed by Gargamel. Papa Smurf struggled anew to smurf another portal, but the Smurf portation crystals still weren't working properly. A portal eventually opened, but something seemed very wrong. It was swirling red and blazing hot. Papa tried to warn the Smurfs, but they were so eager to leave the bitter cold of Ice Mountain that they jumped in anyway. Left with no alternative, Papa joined his Smurfs, and together they smurfed into what Papa realized was almost certainly another of Gargamel's traps. Exiting the portal, the Smurfs carefully walked across a bridge suspended over a giant pool of boiling lava. As a flock of silly-looking birds flew overhead, Papa Smurf knew that they would not have to wait long for another Gargamel spell. Back in Paris, Smurfette told Gargamel she believed that her family would still save her. Gargamel replied, "How are the Smurfs going to save you when they won't be able to save themselves?" Gargamel then cast a spell into the lava. "Forget about the Colonel. Let's see how they like a wizard's fried chicken."
Let's Smurf.
With the Phoenix beaten, the Smurfs were able to set their sights anew on Gargamel. Papa Smurf used the magic in the now restored crystals to finally smurf a portal to Paris. He reassured the nervous Smurfs that this time it would lead them to Smurfette. The Smurfs followed Papa Smurf into the portal and to what was sure to be their final confrontation with Gargamel. When they emerged, the Smurfs saw a tall, pointed tower. As usual, grouchy Smurf complained that it didn't seem they were in the right place. As if on cue, a flyer fluttered by, announcing Gargamel le Grand. proving that they were indeed on the right track. The Smurfs crept quietly into Gargamel's theater, where he was performing his magic show. But Gargamel still somehow managed to spot them and retreated behind the stage curtains to escape. The Smurfs gave chase, only to discover that Gargamel had trapped their sister Smurfette in his evil Smurfstractor, a machine designed to steal the essence of a Smurf. With a devilish grin, Gargamel proclaimed,
This is the end, my little blue Smurfs. Once I extract all of your essence with my Smurfstractor, I shall rule the entire world! Luanda and I will stop you, silly Smurfs! Get ready to feel the wrath of the magnificent Gargamel!
Let's Smurf.
It's all part of my plan. See? Perfect form, right?
Alakazam!
Pretty unforgettable. Don't worry, I got this. It's all part of my plan. I plan to do that. I'm the best of the job.
You Smurfs made Luanda hate me! Just remember, this won't be the last time you face the mighty Gargamel!
The Smurfs rallied to save Smurfette. As the battle raged on, Gargamel stumbled into the Smurfstractor, damaging it. While he frantically tried to make repairs, the Smurfs freed Smurfette. But Gargamel still had his naughties. He called upon them to stop the Smurfs. But Vexy and Hackus hesitated. They had come to care about Smurfette. The naughties remembered how she had pleaded with Gargamel to feed them when he cruelly refused, showing them the power of love. Vexy and Hackus now joined forces with the Smurfs and tripped Gargamel into the Smurfstractor. It exploded and sent him high into the air, showering a rain of sparks, just like a fireworks show. While it had been a long and difficult quest to rescue Smurfette from Gargamel and Azrael, the Smurfs joyfully reunited and reminded themselves that family is always there for one another, no matter what the odds. Smurfette tearfully thanked Papa and all the Smurfs for saving her. With the group together, Papa Smurf opened a final portal to return them all to Smurf Village. But before they left, Papa Smurf noticed that Vexy and Hackus were also crying as Hackus sobbed, "Hackus leaking." Papa knew the naughties were really Smurfs at heart, just like Smurfette, even though they had been created by Gargamel. And now they had turned as blue as any Smurf. Smurfette told the Smurfs how it happened. Gargamel had used a potion on the naughties, the same secret formula that had changed Smurfette herself so many years ago. His plan was to transform his naughties into Smurfs, and then extract their essence too. But this plan, like all his others, had been foiled by the Smurfs. With Vexy and Hackus along for the ride, the Smurfs leapt together into the portal to return home. Back in Smurf Village, Smurfette's birthday party was now finally underway. Every Smurf, including Vexy and Hackus, gathered around her Smurfberry cake to celebrate. As the Smurfs sang and danced, their troubles with Gargamel became a distant memory. Life for the Smurfs had returned to normal. That is, at least until their next adventure.